All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to me the first time around. I hope that this time will be just as enjoyable. We're going to cover a lot of topics tonight, a lot of current events that are going on in the world right now, and how they impact you and how I feel like they impact the country and how we should be looking at it. So, the first podcast was just kind of an introductory as to who I am, what I want to talk about, how I want to unite the country, and how I would like to make politics less of a extreme on either side situation and more of a how can we come together on common ideas. I am a moderate is how I view myself politically, which means that I'm more fiscally conservative. I believe in safe borders. I believe in democratic social issues. I believe in a women's right to choose. I believe in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to happiness, freedom of gender, freedom of choice. All of those things are very essential to our democracy, but I also do believe that the government should intervene in our lives as little as possible, something that seems to be very far from what is going on currently. Funny enough, that used to be something that a lot of Republicans believed in, and since it's kind of shifted more to a democratic view, a lot of the things I believe in are really core to who I am, how I grew up. I believe that the color of your skin, your religion, your gender, you should be able to be comfortable and happy and safe in whatever skin you wear, and whatever's important to you. And the freedom to voice your opinions, even if they're different than mine or other people's, is totally, totally valid. All right. So now that that's out of the way, kind of want to jump into a couple current events. That's mainly what this podcast is going to be, is me talking about current events and things that are important to our lives, and have a real impact on kind of how our government's working. So the first thing I think is a big thing that a lot of people were following or interested in was the Jimmy Kimmel firing. Look, I'm not here to say whether I thought it was right or wrong. First of all, so 21 to 34 year olds were about 1.1 million for the last like 4 or 5 years. And then the last 2 years or so, it's dropped to just 218,000 people from the ages 21 to 34 were actually viewing his show. That being said, while there may have been justification for canceling his show in general, I don't think that the timing of things was right. I think that the FCC should not be forcing anyone off the air. I don't think they should be threatening to pull anybody's license. That's not right. It's an infringement on freedom of speech. And let's not forget, though, that this is not necessarily a right issue. The FCC has been doing this even during the Biden administration, where the Biden administration threatened to pull licensing of Fox News in 2020. So that was something that also came from the FCC during a liberal administration. So I just think that the FCC is flirting with something that's really dangerous. Interfering in what's aired, period, is not something our government should be doing. I think government and freedom of speech and network issues are different. Sure, they intermingle, I think, in how news is covered and how things and topics get talked about. But I don't think that it's something the FCC should have any business in doing. I don't think that they should necessarily be coming in and saying what can be aired and what cannot be aired. That is 100% wrong. And that's kind of my take on that situation. While this was happening, there were 2 different reports of left-wing advocates going to ABC subsidiaries with guns, threatening to shoot up the place until Jimmy Kimmel was put back on air. Those 2 things were not covered by the news very much, but there are articles if you want to go and look it up. One of them was a 29-year-old kid, and the other was a 43-year-old male. And afterwards decided, hey, I'm going to take matters in my own hands because I feel like nobody's listening to me. Let me threaten to shoot up ABC and their subsidiaries until he's back on air. Obviously, that is wrong. I am totally okay with protesting. The freedom to peaceful protest in this country has been essential for years, and it is essential to creating social and economic change in this country. I think when it gets violent or when it calls for violence is when it's wrong and it takes it a step too far. Kind of at the same time, There was a 29-year-old kid who went to an ICE facility in an attempt to shoot ICE agents, and he actually left uh, a whole like manifesto behind on why ICE agents should die. We should take aggressive action and violent action towards ICE agents. And he said that ICE was going to pay and they were going to know his name after this. So obviously that's very, very frightening and very disgusting. But he went in, and in an attempt to kill ICE agents, he actually ended up shooting and killing 2 migrants in holding facilities, and left a note behind that, again, like I said before, was very disturbing. I don't know why we continue to believe that violence is the only answer to creating change. Maybe it's because I think with our administration now, there's a lot of things that seem like they're impossible, right? Like there's things that the Trump administration is putting into action that it feels like we have no control over. And it feels very authoritarian and very scary, because there's some things that, not everybody agrees with. And because the Republicans hold the House and the Senate currently, it's very difficult for Democrats to get legislation pushed through. And I think but the thing that is really what we should be pushing for is vote. It is so important to vote. It is so important to make sure that if you don't like the way the government is now, or you don't like the way things are going, vote to change it. Do not go to violence. Violence is never the answer. I touched on that a little bit in my last podcast. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about those 2 issues. But I think as a society, we need to continue to follow the way that our forefathers decided to solve political issues. Prior to 1776, 1767, prior to the organization of, and the Declaration of Independence and whatnot, colonists organized protests to oppose the Stamp Act. For those of you that don't know what the Stamp Act was, it was the first time that taxation from the British was put on colonialists in an attempt to subsidize and kind of pay for the war that Britain was in with the French, which was the French and Indian War. The British government was running low on funds to continue funding this war. So the way that they thought in which to fund it was to tax colonialists. And obviously they were outraged over the fact, but the key leaders at this time made a point that even in the face of taxation, without any kind of government representation, the colonialists stressed that there should be no mobs or tumults, is what the actual wordage was, which is violence or mobs of any kind. Let the property of your most invertebrated enemies be safe. So basically, the people that you hate the most, let them be safe, protest, speak out, but don't turn to violence. Samuel Adams, who was one of the greatest American heroes, I think, of all time, stressed the importance that there should be no mobs, no confusions, and no violence in order to achieve their goals. That is not what the forefathers of our country wanted America to be founded on. They didn't want it to be founded on violence. They wanted it to be founded on hope, love, peace, and a better nation. They wanted better than what they were under with British government ruling them. They wanted independence, they wanted freedom, and they wanted peace and happiness. And I think words to live by are words that James Otis, who was essential to the independent movement, if you don't know who he is, he was not covered nearly enough. But he did sign the Declaration of Independence, I believe, but he was not a drafting member. But he said that under no possible circumstance, even the most oppressive of times, could ever be sufficient to justify violence. And I think in a time where, like I said before, violence was more justified than ever before, leaders of up and coming America knew that nothing real, strong, and positive could ever be built or accomplished through violence. And I think the same is true today. If you want change, speak out, call your government officials, vote, and make sure that you organize together and peacefully, and you make your voice heard, but do not do it through violence. Second one I want to talk about is kind of where a lot of my friends and 20-something year olds coming out of college are at. So we're at a time right now, actually, where the stock market is doing very well. Businesses are thriving. The economy seems to be thriving by all accounts. However, there are tons and tons of people my age who can't get jobs. We come out of college with political science degrees, which is what I had, uh, communications degrees, journalism degrees, anything you can think of. And we think that, okay, we're going to be able to get jobs because that's what our professors are telling us. That's what the career centers at our schools are telling us. But the contrary is true, right? We have so much knowledge coming out of college from these different majors and different institutions and different things that we're learning. We are accumulating so much knowledge. And then we come out of school and it's harder than ever before to get a job. Why is this happening? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think a lot of it has to do with the automation and the trend towards AI. I think that's part of it. I don't think it's completely taken over yet, but we are in a time right now where it is the age of automation is what I call it. We are growing ever closer to that time where these essential jobs or jobs like sorting data or marketing, these things will become automated to the point where we won't need man force and manpower to do these things. So then the question becomes, how do we make money? The cost of living is increasing. I go to the market, it costs me like $200 for groceries. That's if I'm like buying a lot of stuff, but on the most part, it's between 100, $200. Let's say I'm getting paid 50,000 a year and I have to go every 2 weeks to get groceries. That's a big chunk of your income. Not to say that you're also, also you're paying for an apartment rent, then you have your car payments, car insurance, health insurance. It's ridiculous. And the more and more jobs that become automated, I think it's great. The automation, the push for technology is great. But how do we manage this? How do we balance making sure that kids coming out of college or kids that are coming out of law school or getting master's degrees, how do we make it easier for those people to have value and to get jobs and to be able to make a living to support themselves? And then let alone if they're young, if they have, young children or they're young parents, how do we help young parents be successful? Because I'm a single guy and it's hard, but I can't imagine if I had to provide for a wife, children, it's crazy. So I think that that's something that I am doing a lot of thinking about. It's something I talk with my friends a lot. And I think we may not have an answer right now for how to solve this, but it is something that we should continue to talk about. It's something that we should continue to push our government to recognize, to discuss, to talk about, to push through legislation that helps families, I guess, either lower the cost of living or increase wages. But that doesn't mean increasing taxes. That doesn't mean increasing the rent payments and things like that. I think, again, I don't know. I'm spitballing. I need to sit down and look at numbers and look at legislation and things like that. But I think it's something that we should be talking about more that we just aren't doing right now. Shifting to a new piece, I want to just shift over to Gavin Newsom gave a press conference. He just pushed through legislation. So Gavin Newsom's big thing is he's running for president. We have kind of an assumption. He hasn't officially, stated that yet, but he probably will be the leading nominee for the 2028 Democratic Party. And so he's doing anything he can right now to fight against the Trump presidency, the Trump administration, and to do everything he can to combat it in ways that he can do. Now, while I love the fight and I love the appreciation, I think it's increasing the divide in our country, like I talked about earlier, saying that I'm right, he's wrong, this person's wrong, this person's right, sending, I don't know if you've been seeing Donald Trump on his Twitter page, posting a bunch of memes. While they're funny, that is not something a president should be doing, I don't think, is posting memes, racist memes about Democrats. And I don't think that Newsom should be posting memes attacking Trump or Republicans. It just increases this push for political violence. He is pushing through a piece of legislation that he just signed into law in California, where he is requiring ICE agents to not wear masks. I understand both sides, right? So I understand the push for it is due to the fact that it's a scary thing, right? You see these ICE agents come out of cars picking up illegal immigrants all over the state of California. wearing masks in vans, and it's scary. It's traumatizing for families. It's traumatizing for illegal immigrants. It's traumatizing for the people that they are grabbing who are not illegal immigrants or who they have false information of. But at the same time, I kind of want people to, you know, although they may hate the immigration policies of our country currently or how aggressive and extreme they are, I want you to think about the other side of this. I want you to think about these ICE agents who are just doing their jobs. And if you require these people to not wear masks, then you risk people, and we've seen it so far with the Charlie Kirk assassination and the shooting at the ICE facilities. You are causing people, there are some crazy people who will take pictures or screenshots or things of ICE agents, and they will find their identities, they'll find where they live, and they will, it's not safe for these people. There are crazy people in this world who will use anything they can, and use any kind of excuse to commit violence on the other side of the aisle politically. And I think it's dangerous for ICE agents to obviously do their jobs. And it's very dangerous for them, especially if they're not wearing masks, to be recognized, and then for them to have to watch their backs when they go home, to have to watch their family, for their families to have to watch themselves in public. It's a very scary thing. So I just caution you to think of the other side of every argument. But if it were me personally, I don't know what the right answer is with this piece of legislation, but I think that there is now for autonomy and for people to be careful and to and so if ICE agents are going to wear masks, they're still taking people and deporting them anyway. I think there is a difference if they wear masks versus when they don't wear masks. The odds that they can get recognized, identified, and people can, find them is increasingly large. And I would be very, very nervous with the state of our country right now for those people. But anyway, I want to just share a snippet of what Newsom had to say on his piece of legislation, and just kind of to show you that both sides seem to not think about the consequences of their actions, and they are so they're so quick to jump down each other's throats and to attack each other that I think sometimes they don't think about the people that their legislation actually impacts.
And we have the right to stand up and push back. And that's what we're doing here today. This is a disgrace. This is an outrage, what we have allowed to happen in this country. And I could not be more proud of this legislature, the legislative authors, to the community demanding more from all of us at this moment to push back. I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You're going to go out and you're going to do enforcement. Provide an ID. Tell us which agency you represent. Provide us basic information that all local law enforcement is required to provide. Have the decency not to threaten people as they go to school, to go out the parking lots proximate to these schools to create chill.
A couple things. First of all, his message on fighting back and preventing ICE from taking people at school or going into schools and taking people, I agree with that. I think that those are very important things, but this piece of legislation does not do that at all. If you want to prevent those things, write legislation to prevent to prevent ICE from going into schools, to prevent ICE from doing certain things or being more humane in the way that they are taking people. But telling ICE agents, what are you afraid of? And we should, and this is a monumental step. No, I mean, it's not really a monumental step. You're telling them to unmask, and they're afraid of violently getting attacked. They're afraid of their family violently getting attacked for just doing their job. Whether they agree with what they're doing or not, they are getting paid to do a job just like anybody else. Now, I know you can argue, okay, really, and you're like, if you have a good conscience, you should not be doing this. Sure, I can make that argument, but there are thousands of people that do things for money that are way worse than this. And I think we all judge them, but we let it happen anyway. So I think this is a prime example, though, of Gavin Newsom not entirely. He's trying to promote a message, right? A message that our country is in a state of disaster. Our country is aggressive. It's violent. It's not what it should be. I don't disagree with that. I will say that I appreciate the message and I appreciate the fight and the wanting to push back on policies that he feels like are hurting this country, which, again, like I said, I do not disagree with. But I think I disagree with the way that he's wording it and the steps that he's taking. I think you have to think about people. I know you want to attack Donald Trump, you want to attack the Trump administration, but think about the ICE agents who this maybe endangers. And the fact that if ICE goes and wears masks to, capture these people, yes, that is traumatizing. That is scary. That is not right either. But I think completely banning them and saying, "What are you afraid of?" That's just not. I don't know if he's thinking before he's speaking necessarily. Again, a hot take, but that's my take on it. Okay, jumping to the next thing. Kamala Harris just came out with her book, by the way, about the 2024 election. I don't know what to think about it. There was a lot of stuff that was said in this that was a little disgusting to me. The fact that she blamed her losing and bad campaign on only having 107 days to run the campaign. While, yes, I feel like that is very difficult. You could have had better strategy. You could have interacted on social media. You could have targeted younger generations who were ready for change, who wanted something different than Donald Trump, who wanted something different than what our country had been for the previous 8 years with Trump and Biden and Trump and Hillary. I think we were ready for somebody new and something different, but you didn't run a campaign on something different. She ran a campaign on continuing what Joe Biden had built and, frankly, what America didn't want anymore. I think also, she also said that she saw the decline of Joe Biden and she noticed it and wanted to do something about it. She was the vice president. Who else was in a position more ripe than her to do something about it? If you know somebody is in a state of mental decline like that, do something, say something. I think it was crazy to me that a lot of Democrats knew exactly how his cognitive function was declining, and they didn't do anything or didn't say anything about it. And then when she was running during her campaign, it definitely put her in a hole. You write in your book and you tell the American people once you're running a campaign that, oh, I saw his decline, but I didn't say anything about it. How do you expect American voters to trust you? Also, in her book, she stated two things that bothered me. First of all, she said that, her vice presidential candidates, she ended up with Tim Walz, who I think hurt her campaign in the long run. But she felt like she couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg because he was gay, and she couldn't pick Josh Shapiro because he was too eager to become the vice president and he was Jewish. And the fact that Kamala Harris's husband was Jewish, she felt like put her at a disadvantage, with voters. It's a gross thing to even talk about. I am a Jewish American male. I don't think that religion should have anything to do with politics. Our forefathers believed that. It is something that has increasingly changed, and it's something that people feel a certain way about. I think it's great to believe in, if you're a Christian, to believe in Christianity very strongly. If you're Jewish, to believe in Judaism. If you're Muslim, to believe in Hindu, Buddhism. Whatever you believe in it strongly. But I don't think that politics is the place where we should put religion front and center. And I don't think that that being different religions divide us in any way. I actually think understanding different people's religions bring us closer together. I went to Catholic school my whole life. I saw a Marianist school. I saw what a Jesuit school was like. I previously was in a relationship with somebody who's Lutheran. So I've grown up around all different kinds of religion. And I think that understanding other people's religions and why they believe in the things that they do is very, very important to this country, just like understanding people's political differences. I think that saying that you couldn't pick somebody because they were gay or because they were of a certain religion, it just personifies where our country is at. And if you are trying to be a candidate of change, saying those things, saying that the Democratic Party was not ready to put aside religion or not ready to put aside sexual orientation when you were fighting for the freedom of belief, the freedom of expression, and the freedom of just the right to be whatever gender, whatever sexuality you want, then why are you contradicting yourself with the candidate you claim that you can't pick? It's just a very confusing book to read. I had very mixed opinions about it. There were some things that she said in there that I liked, but there were a lot of things that you just sit there, you scratch your head. You're like, why are you writing this? Why are you sharing it now? And why do you think that this would help this current state of the country right now? Yeah. I want to also move on and touch on something I feel like is very important, and that is election money in politics. So I recently volunteered for a organization that is a bipartisan organization called Represent Us, where we were calling different people about banning congressional stock trading, which I feel like is very important. It's a bipartisan issue. But, while I was doing that, I had the pleasure to speak with a lot of people in their organization, a lot of volunteers, and they shared an article with me about just kind of a short history of election money in politics. I'm going to share that now. So this kind of just breaks down the cost of elections over time. So as you'll see in 1998, the cost of political elections, so congressional races, were about 3.1 billion. Now, in the 1990s, funny enough, congressional races actually had a larger budget than presidential races. So there used to be a cap that was reversed during the Reagan administration. He put through legislation that did not put a cap on how much money presidential candidates had to raise or could raise. After the 1990s, it exploded. So as you see in 2024, it was 15.9 billion was the average cost of congressional races, and the presidential races exceeded 100, 200, 300, 400 billion. Trump's campaign raised something like I don't even remember the numbers, but it was upwards of $300 billion. Crazy stuff. This kind of shows you a timeline of how we got here. Buckley versus Vallejo was the major Supreme Court case that decided that spending money to influence elections was constitutionally protected free speech, basically saying that money is a version of free speech. And that kind of gave way to all of these other Supreme Court cases that kept pushing for money basically funded candidates. So instead of allowing any kind of candidate to run and everybody having the same or similar budget, so we got the best possible candidate for this country, money started talking, right? So in 1979, they also said kind of that an association of citizens or corporations have the right to free speech, so that corporations are people, money is free speech, so that, these massive lobbyists and money conglomerates that influenced elections, they paid for candidates that they felt like would win and would allow them to get certain kind of kickbacks or benefits and things like that, either from legislation that the candidate promised would go through, or putting other people in office, on different committees or in their cabinet who these lobbyist organizations felt like would speak on their behalf or influence them in a positive light. And I thought it was a really interesting article. It's something that I think everybody should read. There was a 60-minute expose that talked about how members of Congress spend more than half of their time, sometimes 6 to 8 hours a day, calling donors, fundraising, instead of working on legislation. And that all really changed. Like I said, so Reagan passed laws in 1998 that really pushed spending upwards, but it was really after FDR it was, well, I guess it was right after FDR's term ended, his last term ended, that all of these Supreme Court cases really started to side with large conglomerates, large mega donors, and money, and they really allowed money to hijack American politics. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why we are in the state that we are in today with our country, with our political candidates, and just kind of the way that the things are operating. So it's just an interesting article. So if anybody wants to see it, go to representus.com and then just look up Big Money. They have a lot of good articles, Represent Us, and they're a bipartisan organization. And they just put out really, really good stuff. I also wrote my senior thesis on how money and fear of political corruption can influence elections and voter turnout. I also would go look at that. If you look up my name on the internet, you'll find it. And I just think that there is a lot that money is doing and that have changed the political landscape over time. The last thing I want to talk about just quickly is the government is currently shut down. Democrats want the reason it's shut down is Democrats really want the government to look at Obamacare and healthcare and Medicaid. They want to look at these things because the Obamacare deal is expiring in about a year. So Democrats want to get eyes on it now, want to get terms agreed to now so that they can agree to extend Obamacare and Medicaid for the next 10 years. While I understand that, and I think that some of those things are beneficial and not beneficial, don't shut down the government to do it. People hear that the government shuts down and we're like, what the heck does that mean? Basically what it means is that no legislation can be passed. There's no money that is going around. Money shut off, banks are cut off, everything's cut off from government at the time. So if you're a government employee, you work for TSA, anything like that, you are put on furlough, which means that you are on unpaid leave, basically. So let's say you are getting paid $50,000 a year or $55,000 a year to work at TSA at the airport, right? So while the government shut down, you don't get any of your paychecks. So let's say the government shut down for weeks, a month. That's a month that you're not getting paid. And a lot of these people have families and things like that. And it is wrong to hold them hostage to fight about legislation that's not even expiring for another year or so. And so I think that's a very interesting thing. But right now, the kind of thing that the Republicans are pushing is that Democrats are shutting down the government because they want undocumented immigrants and illegal immigrants to get health care benefits. That's actually not true, not completely true. If you look at the Democrat CR, which kind of is what they type up it's like CR is like almost like a demand letter that Democrats are demanding. It's like their set of demands to Republicans in order to reopen the government. In there, and again, nobody shared like an actual physical copy. If you go online, Speaker of the House on both sides is like Hakeem Jeffries, and they're sharing bits and pieces of it, but we're not actually seeing a physical document, or at least it's not accessible to the American public. But Mike Johnson for the Republicans is claiming that on page 57 it reads that they want full Social Security benefits to go to undocumented and illegal immigrants, and it's one of their demands. In a way, in some wording, they're asking for Social Security benefits to it's undocumented immigrants that have legalized and matriculated into citizenship. So it's different than what is being pushed. But Democrats are also pushing that they are not asking for anything. They just want a clean CR. That's also not technically true. So if Congress fails to extend tax credits that many people use to kind of buy insurance through the Affordable Care Act and through Medicaid, those subsidies that were put in place during COVID-19 and the pandemics, which I told you are set to expire in a year. Democrats are saying that if they don't address it now, that when this bill comes up again during the election cycle in 26, that there's no way to get those benefits back. And they basically are saying to hospitals that all of this emergency services and emergency care, so like ambulance rides, things like that, because they're losing, hospitals and things like that are losing so much money because of these things that were put in place during COVID-19, that they would basically reverberate back. And what the government is going to do, but they don't want to do, is they're going to charge us in taxes, in Medicare, in medical, insurance. They're going to charge us more for hospital rides, for emergency care. You go to the emergency room, you go to the ER, they're going to charge you basically double your bill. So bills could go from basically $595 to almost $1,095, which is crazy. And it's basically Democrats are saying, we need to do this now. We need to talk about this now. We need to get this in place now so that this doesn't happen. Because it's something that they will vote to do if they don't get it done now. I don't know. When the government is shut down, the left and the right, they like to leverage each other, kind of play each other against themselves to try to get the best deal possible. But there's a lot of misinformation going around. Do your research, read articles, know that a lot of what is said in politics now is not true. This is a very important thing, and the government being shut down is a shame because it impacts hardworking people, blue collar workers, people in government. It's just a very important thing. And so hopefully I taught you a little bit about what government shutdown means and why it's an important thing to think about. Anyway, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thank you all for coming in to listen, and we'll catch you the next time. Thank you.